little concerned.
Recordings are recording. That's sick.
No, I think this is like a really cool like experiment for us to do, but it's good just kind of seeing you guys like week over week. But yeah, Brian, you want to like do the intro, man? Like you're pretty good at this stuff.
Yeah, hey everybody, welcome back to another podcast. I think the numbers keep changing, so we can't really call it something specific. Benny, what do we start with? Bodega vibes?
Yeah.
Bodega vibes.
Bodega vibes.
Now it's Bodega vibes with Benny, Brian, Paul, and Drax. The last time most of us spoke together, I think the entire industry was so different. Obviously, y00ts is pretty hot, and I would say we should probably focus on that a little bit more. I know every single podcast, every single space has been talking about that, so I'm trying to shy away just for uniqueness and variety, but inevitably it's what we're going to talk about. Open shill so that I don't openly shill continuously. Hyperspace has been killing it. Notify has been killing it. Famous Fox has been killing it. I would say objectively over the past 2, 3, 4 weeks that none of us have been interacting, but take it away.
Yeah, no, I think we've all been kind of busy since the last couple of weeks, right? Everyone's just been focused on kind of shipping stuff and like delivering stuff. And in the meantime, like, you know, Frank's out there. Okay, so I don't actually know what y00ts is. I saw it on Twitter. I think I understand it's the second gen of like DGOD. Is that right?
I think
okay, that's completely wrong.
No. I think that's the layman's way of putting it. I would say that if I was describing it to someone that didn't know. Travis, you said something different?
Yeah, no, I would say, I mean, it's kind of like, at least the way that I see it kind of being built out, you know, with them starting with the tubes, is it's got kind of like the Mutant Ape Club vibe from like the Bored Ape side for the way they're launching it. So I would call it kind of like, yeah, like a second collection for them. The one thing that I think is interesting about it is like the openness that Frank puts for like the team and such, that like they're planning on having a different team kind of run.
Oh.
Yeah, so like
it's a completely different team.
Yeah, completely different team. Like even from the CEO down, like they mentioned that they're going to have plans for, you know, getting someone. Frank's going to take the role in the meantime until, you know, they find a qualified candidate for that position. But I think that's kind of where it's a bit different from, you know, what's kind of been done in the past with other previous collections.
Got it. I mean, the only thing I've seen, and maybe like probably the most of the crypto Twitter has seen, is like the list or something of people like making it in. By the way, I never made it in, so I've been tagged a bunch of times, but I never made it in. So if you guys have made it in, congratulations. But that's like the extent of what I'm familiar with on y00ts. But yeah, would love to kind of get your takes on that, Benny or Brian.
As perhaps the only y00ts holder out of 4 of us, I think. Or Drax, you have something?
I had one. I don't currently have it. I'm a trader at heart. I'm a degen trader at heart. So I did have one.
Did you make some money? You made some money?
I mean, anyone that sold it made some money. But yeah, I mean,
I have no idea actually. I don't know what the mint price was. I don't know what the current floor price is.
Yeah, I was gonna say mint price was around at the time like maybe 34-ish sold, 30 to 34-ish sold. For it, and I mean it could, depending on when you got in dust, it could have been all the way down at $1 times 375, but at launch it was around 34-ish. The interesting part about it too is like when it did launch, like it was actually kind of open before they said it was open. So like I was in there as a degen, like waiting for it to just load up for me. I minted and then told our community like, hey, anyone that's y00ts listed can go in and mint. And then they posted a tweet that said, oh, you know, it's available for folks to go in. And then I think eventually there was a point in time where it got like clogged up. So I think that at least helped some people get in early. I think I was like 139th or something like that.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wait, was there a pre-mint or just a mint?
So it's not a pre-mint. The way they did their allocation for it is the dead gods all get allocated 1. So the numbers 1 to 10,000 are all associated to a dead god. So if you have dead god number 1, you would have y00ts tube number 1, and then all the way up to 10,000. So what, some of the posts you probably see on Twitter is like, you can tell who's selling from the DGOD side, who's selling from the y00ts list side, based off of the number itself.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
For the individual that's being sold. Yeah. So then anything from over 10,000 is on the y00ts list.
It's a phenomenal dynamic. It's something that's never been done before. I just want to say, regardless of outcome, this is not to like kiss Frank's ass at work. I guess in a way, show my own bags, but like, it has definitely brought a different paradigm to the industry and something that no one really has done before. In some ways, you could argue that it was inevitable to go this direction, but I think that I will say, as the only, I guess the only current holder in this group, I will not FUD, but go through some initialized like negative thoughts I have is I thought when Frank was first talking about this and back when, so Paul, for information, it used to be called Duppies. Like originally they announced it and they called it Duppies.
Wait, with Duppies?
There was a bunch of things that associated with that. But anyways, in general, in my memory, and both of you guys correct me if I'm wrong, it was originally branded as this way of people entering the general DGOTS community at a lower entry point because DGOTS is so expensive and it's a elite community that everyone wants to join. And in some ways, it is the Solana community right now. And I hope SMBs and DJs don't come kill me, but it is the focus of Solana. But personally, I don't know about you guys, but like 375 dust, $1,000 is a lot of money. For me, it was a lot of money. And not only the cost of the money, but this whole U-list scholarship process and having a dead gods alone already, there's very little reserve for public, which in turn means that unless you're in part of the U-list and have a dead god, it's very hard for you to get this use, which is fine. And I think that's the whole point of being active in the community or whatever. The only thing I would criticize, and there's no way around it because Frank inevitably had to create hype and it needs to make this elite, but there were a fair number of questionable U-list acceptances that made it very, very, I can use the word questionable, very, it hurt in some ways because I will go as far as to say, even me getting it personally, I felt questionable. Because I know for the fact that my hyperspace clout inevitably contributed to it.
Okay.
And you could argue, me working on hyperspace is a commendable thing, but
what about your YouTube?
But and the YouTube, but I'm not trying to be overly humble, but I think there were people that were going above and beyond to get this scholarship, get this U-list spot that in some ways deserved it a lot more than me, and certainly deserved it a lot more than Allen Iverson or these like Instagram, OnlyFans, TikTok girls or who else?
What? Allen Iverson got a U-list?
Yeah. All these like Twitter celebrities or real celebrities started getting it, which again, let me say, Wayne Rooney or Allen Iverson getting it is hype. Like you need that aspect. People are like, holy shit, Allen Iverson is a U-list holder. Like you need that to bump it, and it helps everyone as a whole, and that's fine. But I saw some Solana active people. For example, I'm not going to mention who, but I know for a fact there's one individual that is a fake individual. Like it's a girl username and it's not a girl. I know for a fact.
Oh, I think I know this person.
That person is not a girl, and that person got a U-list. And you could argue we're in the metaverse now and that plays that persona, but I've tracked that person from the beginning because that person actively shilled hyperspace to get on the map. I think it's a very smart person that we probably already know and is using this second profile to gain a following. But the fact that they got it tells me that it's somewhat of an automated process. There's some whatever going on. But long story short, I think there's still mechanisms to be worked out. It's obviously not a perfect process, but it reminded me of like when I was getting into college admissions and people I know for a fact that shouldn't be getting to college were getting it, and that degrades the legitimacy of that college. And perhaps I'm naive, but that's one negative vibe that I personally got.
Yeah, I kind of doubled down on that too. I mean, I do think, from my side, now I didn't apply for Utes until like later on just because people were really like from our community side, that kind of pressured me, like, why are you not applying for it? And for me, like I was getting that vibe too early, and I was like, let me see how this whole process goes. And I know, like, from what they had to go through, even as simple as like their application process was, it's a lot of fucking work for them to go through all those on an individual basis. And like I will give kudos to Frank because I know there are some people in there that he picked that really were deserving and have done great things low key that will benefit Utes in the long run. Like I think some people, more than most likely, the whole Utes team that does come out to be in the leadership side are going to come from the community that he certainly has kind of picked to be in there. I'd be kind of interested to see if he picks anybody outside of ones that are already in the Utes to kind of be in any leadership position. But the thing too that I kind of wondered from like a questionable standpoint was when they had gotten like suspended on Twitter. Like I don't think there was like a whole big thing around why that was. It might have been like some of the fake accounts or even the real y00ts account that was like tweeting at these celebrities that might not have applied for it. Like people might have just submitted their Twitter information in an application in hopes that they'll get accepted on some burner wallet and it's not the actual person. So like that's the one thing that I kind of wondered, you know, when they got suspended, if it was due to like, I'll call it like harassment or something along those lines. But that's what for me like was kind of questionable, and so like eventually kind of did throw my name in the ring, and then some people I kind of tweeted out about it. You know, the whitelist grind, like this reminded me all of like early 2022 when people were doing all this kind of crazy stuff to get whitelisted. It really was, and like it takes away, I think, some of like the fun of what it is. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, like Brian had said, I mean, you're going to have people that legitimately spend hours upon hours filling this thing out. And then you've got other people that might spend 5 minutes to put 3 things in there, submit it, and just because they're either like well-known, popular,
or influencer or something,
or influencers. And I think Frank posted stats too that like somewhere to the tune of about 10% of the people accepted in the application process like had 100K plus followers or something along those lines.
Holy
like
crap.
And that's a lot. Like 10% is a lot. Yeah. For that kind of level. But like to Brian's point too, like that's what they kind of need, right? It's all about the forward-facing Twitter side and throwing it in your face. And you know, I think the rebranding was great to go from Duppies to y00ts. You know, it obviously extends kind of like their timeline for doing things. And when I met Frank, you know, in person at NFT NYC, and we had kind of talked about it, like, you know, he did mention the art wasn't quite right, so, you know, they were going to at least kind of delay from like the art perspective. And that was still at the time when it was called Duppies, so it was before they even probably were thinking about changing it to y00ts. But it's been very interesting to kind of observe from the outside. I think it's a fantastic way to get more eyes in the Solana community, you know, if you're looking at like some more of the positives. I mean, I know there's been some controversial trading people from the ETH side that had gotten y00ts lists and just like, you know, sold it for profit and commented on that. But, you know, people are going to do what people are going to do. If you're looking at making a 4 or 5x return in a short period of time and you're speculating that it's probably going to go down, you know, it doesn't hurt to take profit, buy back in. Even if you buy back in part of the FOMO and you end up paying more, that's on you, you know? So
no, it's crazy, man. I mean, there's like 7,000 unique owners out of a 15,000 supply. That's actually pretty good.
And
public way better.
So
wait, really? Okay,
yeah, no.
So I have like no idea what the fuck this is completely. So I know about I have an excuse. Yeah, I have an excuse. I was out in like in California doing like other work. So I was off crypto. I was at an event, right? So it was like a 5-day event in Stanford. So I wasn't like listening in on anything, and you know, NFTs also like in this sense is not really my specialty. But yeah, no, I finally applied to the process because people asked. But yeah, it was like completely like it was a very long process. I wasn't super interested in it. And like to everyone's point, does everyone hear that? Is there like an echo sound?
I do, yeah. I'm getting like some kind of echo.
I thought it was like a bug. It sounds like a cicada or something.
Can you mute your mic? May it's like a.
I think it's coming from Brian. Yeah.
Oh, it is Brian. It's totally Brian. Well, let me finish my thoughts. Yeah, I mean, like, I thought, like, generally, like, I didn't want to take someone's spot, right? Like, I think it was, you know, to everyone's point, like, it's better off somebody else taking the spot than myself, because, you know, they're very passionate about it, or they have, like, you know, ambitions to actually go through the process. You know, I didn't think that, like, me personally taking one of the 15,000 would have been. It's more of a flex than anything else, to be honest. And I guess I wasn't looking for like a flip. And I'm still very bitter about not buying a DGOD at 7 SOL. in like January.
I sold mine at 87, so if that makes you feel any better. Right before they had like their pump from 87 to like, I don't know, 200 or something.
200,
like that.
yeah. So I can't do it.
So yeah, no, completely get it. You know, and it's interesting too, I'm sorry, Paul, but like the idea too, you know, for having like, I'll say a lower barrier for entry for people that want to like get into the community side. I mean, it's still a very high barrier to enter where it's currently priced at. That's kind of where I'm looking at it from a speculation side. I know there's a lot of people too that have like scooped up on secondary and they've got a ton of these things, but like it's hard from a collection standpoint because from a community curation side of what you really want that, you know, community to be, it shouldn't be like on the same level of DGOTS. Like it can be the mindset, but I think the price range is, you know, it should be kind of more in the range that like more people can afford to be a part of that. And I think that's where, you know, when people weren't accepted or even waitlisted or you know, kind of like waiting, like people have just deliberately been selling off like their dust because they too think that, okay, well, maybe I can use this money to get into a different community that vibes with me, that's at more my price entry, that I can kind of still have a bigger impact in. So I'd be kind of curious to see how that trends for like their pricing over the not so distant future. Like there's nothing wrong with growing that price, but starting off at such a high barrier, you know, for a lot of people that especially applied and maybe didn't get in, I think will kind of get the eyes on Solana, but then they might start looking elsewhere to kind of contribute. And I think that's probably been to the benefit of a lot of other collections recently, you know, for kind of their floors kind of increasing because now people are jumping into some of these others and checking them out.
Was the scholarship, like, if you applied for it and you got it, did that also like allow you to mint it at a cheaper price, or is that just like the scholarship for the whitelist, or is that what they just call the whitelist?
It just allowed you to mint.
Oh, so it was just like a whitelist.
Yeah. Right, okay. Brian?
Yeah, it's simply the ability to mint pre everyone else. But
I see.
It was more like a stage. There was more than enough for everyone to mint.
Got it. But it wasn't like we're going to like offset, give you like an actual scholarship.
Correct.
Okay.
But to your point, Paul, with that too, there were a lot of people that, you know, did get accepted that might not have had enough dust or had the money to get the dust. So a lot of the DGOTS community definitely were helpful for a lot of people that couldn't afford, you know, as much because price of dust went up by a lot.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people did kind of pitch in and help out, which I thought was really awesome. I mean, I think that's one of the great qualities, you know, with a decent community is the fact that there's a lot of people willing to help. You know, DGOTS obviously have, you know, those that have stuck around have done quite well for themselves. So
right.
That's always good to see in the ecosystem. So I do know of quite a few people that had gotten helped out by the community, even if they got accepted on the scholarship or U list.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Like it's like a cycle. Yeah. So like maybe like coming from a different perspective, like I'm coming from like a different like outside view. Like what exactly is this project building? Or like I know there's a couple different things I saw. One was like the what's called the labs, the overarching organization closed like a $7 million seed, which I think hyperspace. Congratulations, you guys are now a VC, I guess. But yeah, they raised $7 million. And what does that have to do with kind of like what the y00ts collection is doing? Does anybody know? Because like I'm coming from a completely like normie perspective on this.
There's very little known, in my understanding. But
they're using the scholarships.
Here's my general understanding. So DGOTS started as a project. Then DGOTS created Dust Labs, which is I think the overarching entity that covers all this. I would assume y00ts is under that umbrella, but Dust Labs is almost a separate entity that's created to. It's kind of like Hyperspace, kind of like Notify, kind of like Famous Fox Federation, where they're creating tools for NFTs. I think that's the easiest way to put it. And for example, this whole scholarship process for y00ts, this ability to essentially submit a Google form and check how much dust you have and then have it accept. I'm obviously oversimplifying things. Is a Dust to Labs product that they're probably going to start offering other projects to use. so that they can offer scholarship-based whitelists. And my assumption is that they're going to create more and more things that are NFT projects.
I see. So it's like a process application, right? That automates like the whitelist. Okay.
Right.
Oh, interesting.
So it's very equivalent to, or actually, I don't want to explain on behalf of, but it's similar to like Blocksmith Labs or Famous Fox or everyone on this call, where they're creating tools and products based around the NFT economy, which brings, actually, I want to ask the three of you, and very relevant actually for all of us here, is I have yet to see a project on Solana that will continue to do well if Solana disappears, which worries me personally, because all of us here, let's be real, we'll be okay long term, but out of a job / out of a purpose if the Solana NFT economy as it exists today no longer matters. And perhaps I think messaging might be different. I'm sure.
Yeah, dude, we're completely we're not in that bucket.
I guess we're the most screwed. But on a NFT project offline, I'm talking about like the D-Gods, the Blocksmith Labs of the world. Their utility / the reason why people are so bullish on them is because they give products and services that are for NFT projects. Like if NFT projects don't exist, no one cares about a whitelist. No one cares about
everything else falls apart. Exactly.
Is that bad? I think it's bad. But is that bad / are we ever going to have projects that actually provide utility / is that a real thing?
Well, I mean, like to kind of pick apart your question, right? Like your first question was really around like, hey, if Solana disappears or Solana fails, right? Like, who's holding the bag? And I think that's one part, right? And the second part is really about the NFT like category itself, right? Like I don't see those two things as the same in a sense. Like they're tied intrinsically for Solana, but I think overall, like you can kind of like see that over time, like being separated, right? There's a lot of layer ones coming out, right? A bunch of new layer ones coming out. There's still a thriving community on Ethereum too. So I think to deconstruct your question, first, Solana, and then secondly, more categorically, is it the NFT marketplace, right?
Sure.
And maybe Benny can kind of like chip in here more because he hasn't been talking. He's been
too
quiet.
Yeah, I think the NFT marketplace, I think the real success you'll see in the future is stuff with revenue share because people like mature investors will want to invest in it. It's just like the plausibility of that and the security of that. I look at like Degen Fat Cats, the way they're able to operate and offer revenue share. That's like a success model that a lot of projects should follow. I think there have been interesting concepts introduced like fruits. They're trying to launch like a whole drinks brand. And I just think you'll see more projects like that.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah.
What the fuck am I missing? Like, what is going on?
Have you heard of ABC?
Dude, I've been gone so I've been like finishing up my fundraising. So I've been kind of AFK, but like I feel like I come back and there's like this like whole new world of crap.
ABC?
ABC from the moment that we started speaking went from 50 whatever to 60. I hate myself.
Wait, I'm sorry. What the hell is ABC?
3 of them, if it makes you feel any better. I think I sold them all like 8, so.
That's exactly what I did, Drax. Like to the dot.
Yeah.
So, Paul,
Yeah.
ABC is a project where HGE, the biggest like Solana whale, he just has this random art. It's kind of like, looks like VFriends, but it's like different, like child drawing.
Yeah, that's cute, man.
Yeah.
I like it. I like the art.
So he launched everything 1.23 SOL at a time. He was listing on Magic Eden. Their site broke. Then he started listing on Hyperspace. So he launched all of them, like no royalty, like no creator royalty, just all sign them on a marketplace. And nobody had any clue like what the utility was or anything. And he didn't say anything for a few days until he started dropping like slow hints, like Hate Swap. He had a partnership with Shopping.io. There was a big one announced today, revenue share, right? And now it's just going nuclear.
What?
Yeah,
So
and I think part of it too, like he did announce like a CC0 concept for. I believe that they're branding the whole thing as CC0. So in theory, I mean, you can use any of them that you want to. But yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of interesting. I think they also renamed to like a builders community, like ABC. Yeah, so they did that I believe on Twitter, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I mean, the one thing that I find interesting with the concept there of 0% royalties is that, for traders and especially for like market makers that want to, for lack of a better term, kind of like take advantage of like the system, your slippage is only 2%. So
the listing fee, right?
Yeah, in a space where like liquidity can be tight. I mean that can be manipulated very easily. So like I mean, for myself, I'm not going to buy back into it. I'd rather kind of just see what happens. And Paul, to your point too, and you said, oh, the art looks kind of cute. I mean, does it look cute because the price is like 60 sol, or if it were 1 sol, would it also look cute? Because there's a lot of derivatives.
For 1 sol, I would buy that. For 60 sol, I don't think I would buy that.
Yeah.
People who are still holding are a little crazy. Like,
yeah. I don't know how. Like, that's the one thing I don't understand for some of these. I mean, especially for, and again, I haven't dug into like their rev share model or anything along those lines that they're like planning on doing. But I'd be kind of curious to see what they end up doing with it. I think it's definitely different, that's for sure. And I think that's kind of what stood out for me, at least when I had first bought into it. But again, not really having a captain of the ship and kind of seeming like it was just going to exist to exist. I wasn't going to hold it kind of long term.
Something that's interesting is HGE is also involved in this project, Kikiverse, which was like they're making a show, and he was an advisor. And I had like 10 of those at the beginning of the week, and I sold all at like 1 sol, and now they're at 6. So it's just like everything's going to the moon.
You're just telling me basically that Solana Summer is back for NFTs.
Yeah,
that's pretty much what you're telling me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's starting to. I mean, even like geckos are pumping pretty good.
Geckos are up like to 35.
Yeah, 35, 36.
Because CoinGecko or whatever changed their profile picture yesterday. I think that's like mostly part
to geckos.
Yeah.
So like a gecko that
way.
looks like yeah.
It's just so funny because my friends always text me. They're like, "Yo, Brian, are you like a millionaire off NFTs? Like you're an insider. Like do you know exactly what you're doing?" I'm just like, I am the worst. Like I have lost money in Solana. I'm net negative right now in Solana.
That's funny.
And that's a common misconception, right? It's like everyone thinks that you're a millionaire, but it's like, no, I probably spent like $1 million. I lost $1 million.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? I mean, it's still a market. It doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's up all the time. I mean,
right.
that's the one thing too that I think a lot of people end up kind of getting like forget about is the fact that like it's still a market. Like NFTs are still a market. For every buyer there's a seller. Like it doesn't matter, how you kind of picture it. So there's always going to be an emotional element to it, just like Brian is very.
Brian, you tell me your trades before you do them. I'll do the fucking opposite.
Just counter trade.
I will counter. We'll split the profits, okay?
That's funny. But yeah, I wanted to circle back too to the point where like if Solana goes away, kind of like with projects, what happens? I think the one thing that I think would be a very interesting like social experiment, if you will, is the fact that like there is still a strong community presence for projects that have lasted and projects that are still relevant and continue to build, and you have a good amount of people that are still interested in building things out. Regardless, like tech isn't going to go away, right? If Solana goes away, tech won't go away. So and everyone that's in Solana still had to learn to do all the shit in like a year and some change. Sure. So I think if anything, the people that are part of these communities or these founders, the folks that are kind of involved, have just been at like hyperspeed, for creating all of the things that they've created. And so whatever the next thing is, if Solana were to go away, I I'd be hard pressed to see legitimate builders and folks that genuinely are doing things wouldn't have a problem pivoting to whatever the next thing is. They might take some time off, as I think that's probably well deserved for a lot of folks, because this is 24/7, 365. But yeah, I mean, I think the people that are in the space that are innovating and that are capable will be able to thrive and survive no matter what. I do think too there are a lot of brands in the space that have products and things they are working on that can also put them in a better position of maybe not even having to adapt to whatever the next tech is. If Solana does go away, if they kind of have their own form of revenue models that are sustainable and people that are interested in buying and existing in their own ecosystem because of that. And so I don't think it has to be associated with the specific NFT in order for that to be for that to thrive or to become the next like business for that project itself. I'm actually surprised that more projects aren't doing things like that. And it could be like a clothing brand, a gaming brand, a something that's not tied directly to a blockchain.
I think it's coming, and I think maybe like adding to that point, Drax, what L1s are you interested in the most, just outside of Solana? Say Solana disappears tomorrow, what L1s pique your interest, man?
I'll be honest with you, like I haven't like dug too deep in the L1 territory. I know that's going to sound terrible, but I look at with what we're doing with our project, more the entertainment side than anything else.
Yep.
And how we can capture a market share. I mean, realistically, how we can capture a market share that's outside of crypto and start to kind of commingle them into crypto and basically bring them in. I think that's what really we need from like marketplaces and things where like we have this.
For general adoption.
For general adoption, exactly. And I think from like our project side, regardless of Solana goes away, doesn't go away, whatever, that, we're on that path to bring in more people to whatever that next thing is. So yeah, I don't have too much to.
That sounds like the ethos of Sui, by the way. So, just say, but no. I mean, I think in general, it's like one of the hot topics too. I think people have all realized, right, that DeFi is not going to beget the next billion users onto blockchain, right? And I think everyone in this room can understand that, right? But I think you're starting to see like experiments in like art, social, and even like games that have like a captivated audience and user base. And I think what Frank did is actually a big testament to that. Like, even though it's like a bear market and people are quiet and things have been low, like there's still 15,000 people that came out, or probably more applications that were submitted, right? So I think really hats off to him and like really testing the market and doing something that like a lot of people haven't really thought of in a sense, right? But I think back to kind of the point of like the different L1s and kind of like the thesis, I think a lot of folks are still some folks are like really focused on like expanding DeFi into other categories. But I think a lot of other folks are more interested in bringing like CPG brands, right? Web 2 brands, more crossing over into crypto in a hybrid structure, right? And I think that's going to be the next real big like movement, right? Like it's been proven now, and I think it's going to be continually proven that building brands is hard, right? From scratch. It's way easier to take an existing brand and segue into the Web3 side than it is to build something from the ground up, right? So where I feel a lot of folks are like excited about is the next phase, right? Even in this like bear market, like everyone is like you guys, like Hyperspace, Famous Foxes, we're all like focused on building still, right? And I think we're all expecting and anticipating that eventually brands will cross over. And when brands do cross over, right, then not only bring like the flood of people, right, but also like the captivated audience and interest of the adoption, right? So I think, for all of us here, like we're very much like in the same boat and category. We're building for like the next 3 years, right? So like to the point of like the L1 stuff, I think it's been kind of shaky in terms of the ecosystem. in terms of like what's happening, what's coming out. There's some pretty like high profile launches happening over the next quarter, right? And there's also like a bunch of L2s being spun out. Wondering like what Brian and Benny also think about kind of the landscape and what you guys are thinking about for the future as well.
So let me add to this. I saw the other day on Twitter that the Sacramento Kings are launching like 80 NFTs of season tickets on Magic Eden Launchpad. So I thought the use case, like this is what I've been saying, like tickets will eventually become NFTs and maybe they're making like a fun profile picture. But I see it all the time on LinkedIn. There's always stuff about Web3s and NFTs for jobs. Like it's going to be the future. Some of these, I think especially in professional sports, there's a way to make like fun, like profile pictures and whatever else of you supporting your team, stuff like that. But I am curious is because they don't need a launch pad. Like if the Kings wanted to launch an NFT, why don't they just do it on their own
site? Yeah.
So maybe there's like an avenue for us. Like I have no idea. That opened my eyes. But definitely going back to what we were talking about, like there's going to be high launches here, like y00ts. There's going to be another one. I would say like you should expect at least one big one like that every quarter. I think like OK Bears was one in like Q2. There's probably a bunch of others during Euphoria Q1 or whatever.
It's called Euphoria.
Well, last year was when everything was minting. I'd say right now it feels a bit euphoric in terms of like just looking at y00ts break records for one-day volumes, and it's just like a little vial. It's not even the art yet. They did it right. Like they're gonna maximize on volume over the next week, 2 weeks.
Here's my follow-up thought on Benny, you bring up a very interesting point about why do the Sacramento Kings need Magic Eden? And obviously, I have my personal opinions on Magic Eden, which I'll swallow.
I think they bring them in because it's like the bridge from Web 2 to Web 3. People are like, oh, it's on this launch pad, and then maybe get some other people interested.
That's the point that I want to make. Where I think all of us, and perhaps you guys don't, but I do, we constantly underestimate how much we know by just being here, and we overestimate, or I guess we underestimate how little non-Web3 people know about this space, for better or worse. So it's very easy for people to get scammed or whatever, but it brings, if we're under the assumption that this continues the way that it is, which I actually believe it is, without my bags involved, then we are valuable for our own existence, period. Like regardless of the skills that we have, just the mere knowledge and the network and the connections that we have. If someone theoretically is in this Web 2 world, or just let's start using those terms, regular world, and they want to launch an NFT project, and I was that person, I would have no idea what to do. I would have no idea what is legitimate, what's the right way to do it, where to go, who to sell it to, what to do. But if I knew Brian John, if I knew Benny Thorne, if I knew Paul or Drax, I would 100% go to that person and say, how do I do this? And whatever that person tells me is gospel, because how would I question / go against that? That is any industry. I remember when I used to work in M&A, we would like advise these clients, and some of these guys would be 40, 50, 60-year-old veterans in these industries, and they would ask me, a 22-year-old analyst, on my thoughts about like comps in the space and like how much this asset would trade for. I have no idea. But I came from college 3 days ago. But whatever I say was gospel to them because I am the expert in that field. And I remember like 6 months in, I would start saying things where I'm half guessing and half estimating. But to them, it's real. I would say it's trading around 10x EBITDA, blah, 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 because it's XYZ, because I've seen this before. And that's just the way that this world works. And I think as human beings, we tend to be somewhat reluctant to be firm in what we say because we want to be sure. And I think all four of us, I want to say, are good quality people. So we're not trying to scam people. So we're hesitant to spread information that we're not sure of. But I think we need to understand that being, I hate saying this, but like pioneers in this space, what we say just ends up becoming somewhat of the truth. And the reason why you have the Sacramento Kings going to Magic Eden is because I would almost argue against what you said, Benny, and I think we're also saying the same thing. I don't think they can launch it on their own. I think that's the problem. I'm sure they can hire a dev, I'm sure they can reach out to Drax and be like, hey, can you create a mint site for us? But I think it's because they don't know. And all they're seeing is like Magic Eden $2.3 billion, the launch pad for creators. We need to go through them. Think about the number of people that when you tell them you work on NFTs, they're like, holy crap, like, how do you do all these things? People don't know. I think that's we're so within this bubble. We think everyone knows, but no one has any idea what is going on. I think that's that's the strength of what we're doing here. That's at least my vibe recently.
Yeah, I was going to add to that too, Brian. I actually had I had a phone call with them yesterday where they have a collective of like street artists that are interested in doing like an NFT related thing, and they have no idea how to get started. So they reached out to me, and I was like, well, I'm going to be biased towards Solana because like they're kind of the middleman where they're doing like the minting and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, right up front, I'm going to be biased towards Solana. I can give you the information that I know. I can give you a little bit about the ETH side, but I'm not too sure on there. And then you guys can take with that as you will and kind of start up. And I said, if you wanted to mint the NFTs, you can mint them on our site. You're going to have to sell them on SolSea. If you want to mint them on like Form Function and then kind of do a whole marketing campaign around that, you can do that. Like it's so much information, and Brian's 100% right where like outside, I mean, if you think about how small the whole NFT community is, include ETH into it, it's tiny compared to every single person that exists on the world and the specialties people have and other businesses that exist. We are a very niche product that grows, that has traditionally grown at an insane rate because it's tech related. It's definitely something that is catching buzz, and you do see people in the real world that are popular like Eminem and Snoop that have a much bigger presence that just shows, hey, NFTs exist. These are what they kind of look like. These are some of the fun things people do with them. Of course, you have people that just shit on them, but other people are like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. Let me learn more about it. But they have no idea where to get started. They wouldn't be able to buy into the Bored Apes.
Yeah, this is why I'm very bullish still on Coinbase and their Coinbase NFT marketplace, right? Because if they figure their shit out, right, like, look, they already have like, I don't know, like 10 million users, right? Or something crazy.
Just don't leverage long, their stock.
No, but look, honestly, like I think they have the captivated hearts of the general public, right? Like that is the only thing people know between that and maybe Robinhood, right? So if they can figure out their stuff, right, they can literally get brands, they can onboard brands left and right, right? Because most brands will also trust a public company more so than any other like native Web3 project. So like I was always very bullish on them in a sense because like they have everything going for them. But if they only could align and execute, right? I'm still pretty positive that they can figure it out, right? Because I think they have a competitive advantage that nobody else has, right? Until one of us goes public, right? From a launchpad service, right? Yeah, I think you're gonna have people trying to figure out how to align in a sense, and I think a lot of those traditional folks need some sort of comfort in order to trust their brand or their baby to a platform / L1, right? So I think that's kind of the biggest hurdle, and yeah.
Yeah, I'd add to that. I think one of the bigger hurdles personally too is from a mindset, the fact of what ownership itself means when it comes to crypto. Because, I personally know a lot of people that are very irresponsible. They're very responsible people, but they're very irresponsible. If you were to say, hey, on this USB drive, is half of your life savings, don't lose it. Are you
talking about me, Drax? Because I feel you're talking.
Listen, I'm not. This isn't targeted to any one particular person. I know myself.
It's very oddly specific. It's a little bit too specific.
But realistically, right? If someone had the ownership, I mean, someone passes away, they can't find the sheet to log into the thing, and then all of a sudden half your network's gone. I mean, it's a very real thing that people are very comfortable leaving their money in the bank, using a credit card. Like, that's just the way it's always been, and like, for a lot of people. And that's where too, I forgot to mention, like with that art collective, like it's going to be a physical thing where people are probably going to want to buy on spot. And if they don't have Solana in a wallet ready to go, it's kind of like a wasted effort. So like, I actually was talking to Foreign Function, and they should have by next month a way for a credit card option to buy. I think that's going to be huge too, because now you kind of combine that where you say, okay, people have the option of using a normal way to buy in right now, and they can own it. Then the bigger challenge becomes, okay, what can they do with it? And also, like, do they have a little bit of Solana in that wallet to be able to actually send it out if they wanted to? Or are they just going to forget about the app, delete it accidentally, and then all of a sudden it's gone? Like, that's the ownership piece where it becomes a bit more challenging for people that are not, crypto native, that might not be interested in kind of the education piece and the ownership that comes with, owning crypto.
Yeah, I think to kind of like add to that, it's going to be kind of controversial. My thought on this is that, like, I think the ownership question puts too much accountability on the user, right? So it's like good and bad, right? It's like great that we have actual like ownership and we can actually have custody of it. But I think that also makes it a lot more difficult for most people to kind of handle. And to your point, because there's like a huge risk. So like, what's that? There's a, I forget what company does this, but they do credit card payments for NFTs, but they hold custody of it on behalf of the customer.
Crossman.
Is it Crossman?
Is it
Okay, yeah, Crossman. Yeah.
Crossman owns, hopefully it's not misinformation, but I think it's Crossman.
Yeah, I think it's Crossman. Yeah, so they own custody of your actual asset until you want to off-chain or on-chain it to someplace else. Which I think, honestly, like, if you think about it, is like, it's super simple, but it's also like super beneficial to a lot of people who are targeted in that segment, right? People who are going to use credit cards to onboard will probably not be the same folks as us, and they don't want to take custody of it in a sense, right? They want the FDIC insured thing. So even though it's amazing that we have this functionality that we can take ownership of it, I think long term, like, people aren't going to care. People are just going to be like, I'm just gonna store in my Coinbase vault or some shit,
Yeah. But I wonder too if there'll be a day where people like want to prove that they actually own what Coinbase says they own. Like, that's the one thing that I do genuinely, like, it does help to keep me up at night when I think about it. But that's the one thing that I really like about like having a ledger, having a cold wallet. Like, it's got my coin on it. Like, I think when you get to an exchange, who knows who owns what? I mean, that's been some of the problems that we've seen with previous exchanges and things like that.
Especially exchanges especially when exchanges die, right? Like,
sure.
Yeah, so it's like,
or super leverage. I mean, for like BitMEX and shit like that. Like, Jesus Christ, you know what I mean? Like,
I will say this though. I did run to FTX when the Slope wallet thing was happening. I literally used.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Trax. You let me move a lot of my NFTs.
Hey, that was honestly, that was one of the things that we saw an opportunity to help. You know what I mean? We didn't crank our fee up and said, use this tool. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the one thing that we said. People are getting fucked by this. It doesn't make sense. Let's just let everyone, use it. And I think we had about 75,000 NFTs in that 24-hour period that were transferred.
Jeez. Yeah, I wish I waited a little longer, because I think I just paid the fee. Cause it's also a nominal fee, right? But
yeah, it's
I think I moved everything before you guys announced it. I was like, damn it.
Yeah, no, but that's the nice thing too with our tools. You know what I mean? Like, I know a lot of people give a shit that like they're not more expensive. If they were more expensive, someone else is going to do it cheaper. It does help us out. It's 500-600 SOL a month or something like that. I mean, it's not nothing. I mean, it counts. It's not like crazy volume, but I know a lot of other projects would like kind of kill to have that kind of income that they can, use as they see fit, for the community. It does go right back to our community too, what we take in from our tools, which is kind of cool. So
no, I think I love that approach. You guys do community driven tools for the community itself. And I think, like, you guys have like definitely a lot of clout in that space, right? Just because, like folks like me, like we were also like recommending everybody in our Discord to be like, hey, if you need to move stuff, use Famous Foxes, right? It's there. Right. And I think nobody has that like toolbox of stuff to kind of just used from. And I think that's one of the big things that we appreciated the most. Hey guys, we're hitting up the 50-minute mark. Any final thoughts and closings?
Final thoughts from my side, just keep an eye out. We are just, I think, wrapping up our testing phase for Boombox, which is our music NFT marketplace. So that will be coming out in the not-so-distant future, maybe within a week or so, not to promise an actual date on it. But yeah, I think that's one of the most exciting things that we're working on launching right now. So, and shout out to the Foxes and Foxy Dev for being a beast.
Oh yeah. Benny and I, we've been cranking hyperspace on the come up, on the speed. Hope y00ts goes to the moon. Hope I get my first successful NFT trade ever.
No, you want a rare, like a mythic.
Yeah. I hope ABC. Actually, I don't know what I want ABC to do because no matter what he said. There you go.
My final thoughts are, Paul, if you ever need like a rundown of what's going on, just hit my line.
Dude, I feel like there's so much.
I'm way too connected.
Yeah. I feel like Benny's a secret like millionaire from NFTs, man. That's what he is. You know what you should do? You should just like publicize your trades on Twitter, and that could just track
You
that.
could easily figure out my wallet. It's not hard.
Okay.
I'm not rich.
You know, we do have a whale watch feature, by the way.
Well, it's not me.
Yeah. So. All right, folks. Thank you so much for your time. Have a good day.